Hello, this is Mark from Night Area.
This is Pieter van Hoorn from Night Area, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
The band is called Night Area. And before you ask, and I know you're going to ask, I won't ask the band what they've probably been asked 100 times themselves. Night Area is the literal translation of the street that band founder Gerben Klazinga lives on in the Netherlands. And he lived there when the whole thing began about 16 years ago or so. It was supposed to be a solo effort, but it evolved into a band, and he called it Night Area. I'm Mark Boardman of Sonic Perspectives, and today we're talking with two of the key members of Night Area, drummer Pieter van Hoorn and guitarist Mark Bogert. They are here to talk about the band and their very soon-to-be-released album, which they're calling D-Day. Guys, welcome to Sonic Perspectives.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hope you're doing well today.
Yeah, we are. Thank you.
Good. Pieter, you've been with the band for the longest period of time. When did you come on board?
Well, Gerben and I played in another band, and he needed a drummer, and he asked me to listen to the music, and he asked me if I was willing to play in the band, and I really liked the album, and I said yes. So we started rehearsing.
It was pretty much a prog style band at that time. Had that been the kind of music you were doing prior to that?
Well, I was playing some other styles like rock and metal and rockabilly, and we were also playing in cover band or tribute band, playing other people's music. But I listened a lot to prog style bands and symphonic rock bands. So yeah, I really liked the music, and I wanted to try it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You've seen a fair number of changes in 15 years. There's certainly been a fair amount of turnover in personnel since that time, and musically, from a sound standpoint, things have also changed. Was that intentional, or were those things sort of part of an evolution?
Yeah, it was part of an evolution, and it happened a bit kind of organic, because when a band comes tighter, you have to perform more, or you have to record a new album that's very intense. And it's like being like working in a company, and some people can do it, some not. Some do like the way of working, some not. Some want to play another style, and that's what that's what you experience. And then you talk about it, and some people leave, some people come. And we always wanted to grow better, and we wanted to play more. And not all people were able to play more. That was one of the first things we asked to the group when we started. If you have to go on a bus for a tour for 3 weeks, can you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And some people said, well, that won't happen. And, but after a while, we played a lot, and they couldn't manage that with their families or their jobs. So that's why these things happen.
Mm-hmm. Mark, you've been on board for what, about 7 years?
Yeah, about 6-7 years right now. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
How did that come about?
At that time, about 7 years ago, my band that I had at that time, there was Spanish Twisted Flavor, was over. We quit the band. So I didn't have a band at that time anymore. And a friend of mine told me that Mark Vermeulen, the guitar player of Night Area at that time, was leaving Night Area. So I think I called Gerben or I emailed the band. I don't know anymore. I sent them an email with the question if they are still looking for a new guitar player because I don't have a band anymore, and I knew about the open space for a guitar player and asked to do an audition. And well, I did that, and then that was right before they come to America. Mark Vermeulen did the tour in America, and when they came back, that was his last thing. And it took a couple of weeks because they were in America to call me back, and they said yes. So at that time, I was the new guitar player of Night Area.
Now you came on board. What the previous band? What kind of music did it play?
It was also progressive rock. A little bit, I think. Night Area was with the older albums more a symphonic rock band. So I think we became a little bit heavier because I don't know, maybe between the rock and the metal guitar player in between, something like that.
Right.
So. And guitar is an important role, not me, but the guitar himself, the instrument, to make it a little bit heavier or not. That belongs to the sound. So I think it became a little bit heavier because of me and also Pieter Vink when he entered the band.
And Pieter came on pretty close to the time that you did, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was a couple months later, Pieter? A couple months?
Yeah, a little bit later.
Yeah.
You were playing with us for the first time in Italy, and then it was still with Gijs. Yeah. And after that, Peter joined the band. Yeah. That's correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a little bit the same time, a couple months, I think, in between. Yeah.
And with that, they got a young guitarist and an older bassist.
A veteran.
Yes, that's right. I'm a more mature musician in Pieter Vink. We should mention that Pieter right now is he 70?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
And you'll be turning 36 in a couple of months.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he's double my age at this time. Really, double my age. But I don't. That's only a physical thing because everybody in this band is a little bit older than me, but I don't feel the difference between that. You know, we have a lot of fun. We can make great music together, and well, the age is not very important in a band, in my opinion.
Well, and if you watch videos of Pieter in particular, you can see that he has not aged much. He is very strong in his bass playing. He's really amazing. His attitude is, I think we are older than him.
Yeah.
No, but he's a very mental. He's a very young guy, really, and he don't want to quit playing. He's very fresh.
He's got a lot of energy.
Yeah, a lot of energy. Yeah, yeah.
Still very much ambition. Yeah.
Pieter van Hoorn. It seems like I'm going to have to differentiate between whichever Pieter we're talking about. You spent some time in the military, didn't you?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I left school, I was in the Royal Military Academy, and after that, I served for in total 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Yeah.
A good experience?
Oh yeah, very good, very good. I would advise everyone to do that. It's very good to grow as a person. You can learn a lot. And it's unique. You can't experience the things you experience in the army somewhere else. That's impossible.
Mm-hmm. Did your time in the military and that experience that you had in any way lead up towards the upcoming album D-Day?
I think a lot about veterans and the welfare of all people who served their country. And that also counts for the people who fought for our freedom in World War II. So yes, that affected the album. I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the veterans, and obviously all too few veterans remain from World War II nowadays, but I would think that they would hold a special place in the Netherlands, maybe even more than they do in this country, because part of the war was fought there in your country.
Yeah, I think so. That's for World War II. That's true. I read a lot of articles and forums, etc. And I think in America, the veterans of Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever they are respected a lot. But World War II was not in your. Yeah, that also counts for Iraq and Afghanistan. But I don't know. But we my parents, they saw your fellow Americans who brought us our freedom. Mm-hmm. So it's very close for us. It's one generation above us. My parents, they saw them. So for us, it's very alive. Is that the right word?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very much. How did the concept come about? Because this is an unusual concept. You don't see rock bands in any genre doing this sort of thing.
We wanted to make a concept album, so we were trying some themes. When we were doing that, we also visited the Normandy beaches, because Pieter, he went 69, and Mark and I gave him a present, and the present was a visit to the Normandy beaches, because Pieter was very interested in that, but he never traveled there. It was a surprise for him. We gave it to him on, I think a Thursday, and on Friday or Saturday we left for Normandy. And when we were there and we saw all the beaches, the museum, Pointe du Hoc, and all the interesting spots, we thought, well, this must be the theme for our concept album, because there's no other thing we can write about or sing about, and there was plenty of possibilities artistically for all the emotions to translate that to music, but also make a connection with the here and now, all the people who are abroad for their countries. It was honoring the people who fought on the D-Day beaches, on the Normandy beaches, but also awareness for the freedom we have, awareness for all people still in the forces abroad, mm-hmm. for freedom for other people. So we couldn't think of a better theme.
Mm-hmm. Mark, I'm curious, because obviously Pieter has a connection because of the military and his parents, and I'm sure Pieter Vink, who was born just 4 or 5 years after the war was ended, and Gerben is basically of the same generation that Pieter is. You're younger. You're of a different generation. Can you feel that same kind of connection to something that happened basically 75 years ago?
I don't think I do have the same connection, but I definitely have a connection, because also here in schools, we have a subject history, and a lot of schools tells about the World War II, learned us that the freedom is not very usual, right? And in the Netherlands, also school education tells and learns us about the war. I don't have the same connection like Pieter, both Pieters, because I'm not a veteran, and Pieter Vink was born right after the World War II. I have seen a lot of movies, and I have to prepare for writing music at this theme. And I watched Saving Private Ryan, well, all those big hits, and listen also to the music that they are using and making in that movies. That inspires me to make music for this theme.
And in fact, you wrote, 6 of the songs, so you wrote the bulk of the music for the album.
Yes, the compositions of mine, but we write the music with 5 of us. I just recording here a song. I program some drums, I play some bass in it and guitars, and I send them to all the members. Also, Gerben work at the same way, but in our rehearsal room, we come together and work. Finally, of course, at the songs that they are right now. We did it with 5 of us. But yeah, I wrote a lot of music for this album. But I was very inspired by this concept. So that worked very well, I think. Yeah.
You have to imagine, Mark. We started our trip in Normandy in a cinema. That's a 360 cinema.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all around you.
Yes.
And in 20 minutes, they showed us what happened there on the beaches in a chronological time. And the music they used was very intense. When we stood there, we had chicken skin, we had tears in our eyes, everything, Yeah. And that was so intense. And I think also for Mark, if you are military or not, if you see that movie and you hear the music, then you know what happened there, and it will touch you, and then you can get inspired to make music or to write lyrics.
Was it just the 4 of you that went on that trip? Had Mark Schmidt, the singer, the previous singer and lyricist, already left the band?
He was not with us in Normandy, but he was still in the band at that time. We started this theme with Mark Schmidt in the first place, and I think we got 2 songs that are at this album. We already written with Mark Schmidt. All the lyrics and the melodies we changed after he left, because Jan Willem has make new melodies, new lyrics about it. But we started this concept with Mark Schmidt in the first place. Yeah.
What happened?
He left the band. He left.
No, it's a little bit a painful story for us and also for him. And this was a new chapter for Night Area, and we want to have people on board that have the same ambitions and possibilities to rehearse, play, etc. And well, a couple things of those things we couldn't figure out. It's very difficult to say that's the story and that is why we don't work anymore together. It was a very long period, and after a long period, we decided we don't think it's going to work out like this, and we changed the singer.
For instance, Mark lives in Marseille. That's in the south of France.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So he was at least half of the time 1,200 kilometers to the south, and that makes it more difficult.
Sure, it does.
For a band. So that's one of the things. And if you want to make a new album, you want to make progression, and you want to do a lot in as less time as possible.
Sure.
So then you have to be together. That's important.
So you bring on Jan Willem. Jan Willem has already had a pretty substantial career as a singer in various bands and etc. You bring him in. Do you tell him you're going to help write the lyrics for this?
Well, that was one of the priorities for the new singer, because Mark Schmidt was a very good writer of his lyrics. He was very good at that, and we really appreciate that. And we know a lot of fans also really like the lyrics of Night Area. And there was also a big task, do you call that a task, for Jan Willem to achieve that also, the same level. I think he did a great job in it, and we wanted to have him also in the whole writing process. That's everybody needs to be a little bit creative to create a new album, and we asked him to do that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But we also helped him because we helped him with the historical facts. With I explained him how an invasion works, because what the basics of an invasion are, all those kind of things. And when he wrote the lyrics, we reviewed them. We changed a little, but he came with very good lyrics, and he read a lot about it. He really did a good job on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me take one example and see how the process worked, if I might. Mark, you are, at least are given the credit on the album for writing "When I'll Be With You," and then Jan Willem wrote the lyrics. How did that process come together for that song?
First, we make the whole demo without the singing parts. That's the way we work. And sometimes, not at this time, and some albums before, sometimes I played some melodies in for the singing parts, but this was very empty about lyrics, of the melodies for the lyrics. And he had the demo without any melody. Only the drums, guitars, bass, and the keys and orchestra parts. And he recorded at his home the melodies and his lyrics. And he sent it back to me and to all the other band members. And we can listen to that. And, well, we
give the feedback.
Feedback, yes. Yeah. And then he works that out. It came back. And that goes over and over. And then finally he came at my place. And then we recorded at a better level the real singing parts.
Right.
Then we have the whole song together, and after that we go into a professional studio and record the whole bunch.
Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty involved process then to get from each step and get to the final product.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I assume a lot of shipping of files back and forth.
Yeah, the files, and also, of course, the physical rehearsals. You know, that's the most important thing, I think, because you play music and not transfer it only by the computer.
True.
But we rehearse in the rehearsal room, and after that, if we change things, I change it here in the computer and send that back to the band members that we have the update version.
Right.
You know, so like that.
It is a concept album, and I suppose whenever you say concept album in rock, you're going to think prog. There are some musical themes that sort of crop up here and there so you can hear them connected. Was that intentional as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the strongest thing, I think, in my perception, is that all the musical themes are coming back at some point, you know. And I think we managed that also at this album. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think so too. I think it works out very well. They're there, but don't necessarily dominate. So it doesn't sound like you're doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
One thing that I noticed, though, and I went back and listened to all of the albums, is that, at least to my ear, Gerben's keyboards, which had been at various points very prominent in the previous Night's area releases, are much further back on this one, and the guitars are much more forward. Am I correct in that assessment?
I think it's true, because it's not the decision that we make. I think the guitar is the same at the Hyperdrive and the Heaven and Beyond album, but we changed another thing, and that makes it different, and that's we're using orchestra, like the violins, the cellos, contrabasses, the horns, and that we replace some key parts in the orchestra, and that's the difference between all the other albums, because that is the same, how do you call that, range where you can orchestrate in keys or in orchestra.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's the big difference. So yes, there is less keys. Not about, I don't talk about the quality. He did a very great job, but we put more orchestra in this album because we think that fits more the concept of this. You know, the orchestra. Every movie that you watch about the war is very beautiful orchestra pieces, only orchestra. And we thought that it would be a very nice idea to do that on this album in the songs too, together with a rock band. Yeah.
Sure.
And we tell a story, so it's more about arrangements and more about emotions, and it's less about what we did in the past. Separate songs, you can make separate songs more complex or do more solos or whatever. But this is a story, and we want to bring the emotion of the story we are telling, and that you can do that better with an arrangement. Instead of one instrument doing complex things. Although a very emotional solo on the keys or the guitar is always good, of course.
The first song, the debut song off of the album, to my ears, sets the tone for everything. It's called New Horizons. It starts off with a speech by Allied Commander Dwight David Eisenhower, but underneath there is strings and some percussion, which almost sounds like it came from a newsreel or a movie of that era, and it really gets the feel going, at least for me.
Well, that's exactly the thing that we wanted to manage, so that's good to hear.
And that, yes, that was what you were intending to do, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whose idea was it to include some of the, I guess what we call sound bites of Winston Churchill or Eisenhower, that sort of thing?
We had some ideas about sound bites and speeches. So we wanted to add some things, and in the whole process, Jan Willem took care of that for the speeches. So he looked which speeches were the best to use and which part of the speeches. And we also looked for instance, the Air Force Choir. They sing Blood on the Risers. That's also a thing we imagined that would be very nice and to honor the paratroopers. So, who did it? Well, I think we did it together. And it's very, very nice to have the difference between the songs, and we want to tell a story, and together with those speeches and the alarm, the siren, and the choir, it's a real story. It's not only music, but you tell the story. And if you read the text in the booklet, you get even more context, because we didn't put only the lyrics in it, but also with every song we tell the story of the song, and so you get more context.
It really does give greater depth to the entire presentation. At least it did for me. You talk about, Peter, the fact that telling a story. I think we probably should be clear that D-Day is not a chronological story telling exactly what happened on D-Day or the day after, but it's more vignettes that are associated with that event than it is a broader story, just bing, 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 this is how it happened.
Yeah, we didn't want to tell only historical facts. So, but we did pinpoint some essential happenings, essential battles or moments in the battle. I think it makes it more recognizable. Everyone knows Omaha Beach. Everyone knows Pointe du Hoc. Everyone knows Pegasus Bridge. All those kind of things. But we also wanted to make a connection with the here and now. So we have a song about the home front. Is that the correct
yes,
English
it
word?
is. Mm-hmm.
So we also have a song about the people who are still at home, while their fathers or their husbands or their wives are abroad. Mm-hmm. And we also have, at the end of the story, a song about freedom. And we make a wish that everyone can live in freedom at some time. And we ask everyone to work on that. So it's not about historical facts only. It's a story. It's honoring people. It's creating awareness, and it's doing a wish about our future.
a wish, but I almost interpreted it as also being a warning that if we take our freedom for granted too much, we can lose it.
You did it well. That's what we also want to say, because at least here in the Netherlands, there's a generation who's, in my opinion, maybe I'm getting old, but in my opinion, getting a lot of things for granted with all technology we have, and it's very easy to live over here. So yes, we also want to make a warning.
I don't think it's just the Netherlands. All the places that you mentioned associated with the bridge and with Omaha Beach and with Normandy, I think you've got an entire generation, maybe two, here who their eyes would go blank when you say those words. They're going, what? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, if the album will be spread wide and a lot of people will hear about it, I hope they will do a little research, see what happened, and translate that to this time, and ask themselves, okay, what can I do to secure the life we have, the freedom we have, the values we have, etc. That's also the intention. I don't know if that's too ambitious, but we just do it.
If you don't shoot high, you can't reach high.
Yes, correct.
One of the other songs, by the way, talking about making it contemporary, trying to reach a contemporary thought. With March to Victory, you dedicate that to the vets with PTSD. And that's, back then, what they called it, shell shock or something like that. But it's certainly, I don't know what it's like in the Netherlands today, but it's a huge issue here in the United States.
Yeah, it's an issue also over here, and there are a lot of people suffering PTSD. In my platoon, I have also ex-colleagues who have that. Last year, I had to give one of my platoon members a medal. I think it's kind of, I don't know what's in America, but it's for the wounded. But it's not only physically wounded, but also mentally wounded. Mm-hmm. So it's widespread. And also in the United States, I read about it on Facebook and other media. And I think we as a society have the duty. Yeah, we have to help those people, and because they didn't ask for it. And it's very, it's a real problem also in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
We have a Veterans Institute. We are a small country, so I think maybe in the Netherlands it's more manageable than it is in the US. We have a Veterans Institute. Everyone can go to that Veterans Institute, and you will be. They will help you, and they also helped us with this album because they also see that this album can help create awareness for these kind of things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do they do a good job at serving veterans?
In the Netherlands?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, they do a pretty good job. They do a lot helping them, supporting them, but also educating on schools, etc., organizing events. I think that it's well organized in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm. Again, probably easier to do in a smaller country like the Netherlands than it is in the United States, where we have real issues in the services we provide to veterans. It's not good, not nearly as good as what it should be. That was my editorial comment for the moment. Mark, we have ignored you and your dog here for a minute.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's all right.
That's why he was barking, I think. No.
My dog was looking up like, where is that coming from?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's Bobby.
It happens. I wanted to ask about one particular song. Ironically, it's a song you're not even on, but it stands out not only because of the music, but because of the story and the lyrics, and that's When I Will Be With You. I mean, it's a simple piano-based love ballad. You've got a special guest, Robbie Valentine, playing the piano. It's almost a Broadway kind of song, almost operatic in its presentation, and that stands out because it's just so different from anything else in the album.
I don't think we wanted to make something different, very different, something else at the album, but we wanted to have one ballad, like something. We try to write always one song that could be a hit kind of thing, not too long, to playing at a radio and stuff like that. And that turns out this time in this ballad. And I think that Robbie Valentine did a great job to make a new arrangement for at the piano playing. He's a very, very great piano player. And Jan Willem make also great melodies at this thing that makes it very, commercial. Understanding for everybody.
I have to say, I had communicated with Jan Willem and asked him about a few things, including this song. And he said he found the story by doing a Google search online. Mm-hmm. And this one just sort of jumped out at him. And if I may, the story is about a woman in Texas. And she was married to her sweetheart for 3 weeks when he was sent overseas in 1944. And about a month after D-Day, his plane, his fighter jet, crashed near Normandy. And for 60-some years, she had no idea exactly what had happened to him. He was listed as missing in action, but she heard other stories that he died there. And it took decades for her to close this chapter of her book. By the way, this lady is still alive in this small town in Texas. I can only imagine, did he come running into some place and say, I got this great story you got to see, this would be great?
Great.
Yeah, and I will again sort of throw in my own 2 cents worth, but the backstory of this woman and her loss and her search is just, it tugs at the heart. It's just enough to bring tears to your eyes.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story when you hear it. Absolutely.
And I think it's the kind of thing that Peter was talking about, too. We're talking about real-life human beings and how their lives were changed forever by this incredible event. And for some of them, they suffered losses that they'll never, ever be able to fill.
Yeah, that's what it is. That story is maybe another version of the Saving Private Ryan story.
Yeah.
But then more a love story, a mother with the 3 sons. I think when you want to show the emotion, you need such stories, how bad they are, but you need them to show what happened and how people suffer from it.
Which sometimes movies or television shows really cannot show. I think sometimes people take them in a superficial way, whereas music, which has such an emotional tug, can do a better job of telling the story and reaching people's hearts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the most beautiful thing about making music.
Now, you did a performance recently, and did you play the entire album?
Yeah.
How was the reception?
Overwhelming. It was really good.
Yeah.
People loved it. It was overwhelming. They liked it. Everyone. Not a single person told us that he didn't like it. So they were all very enthusiastic.
And they're probably going, now where's the CD? Where's the album?
Yeah, so they have to wait till next Friday.
Right, which is being released on the 20th. And I know a little bit of my history. That's right in the middle of the 75th anniversary of Operation Market Garden. Is that intentional?
Yes, and that's where I live. So Oosterbeek, Mark mentioned Oosterbeek in the beginning of the interview. That's where I live. And in Oosterbeek, the Market Garden operation took place. So in my village and in Arnhem, it's all about the 75th anniversary of that battle now. And that's, I think, the Americans, they came from the south. And the English and the Polish and the Canadians, they landed here near Arnhem in Oosterbeek. And that's, I think, the Dutch D-Day. because that was the first try to bring liberation to the Netherlands. They didn't succeed for this region, so we had to wait until 1945. But because we are a Dutch band, and this was, the Dutch D-Day, as I mentioned, we wanted to release it in September, and we also do the release show, the live performance in Arnhem, because that's for the Netherlands, it's a historical place if you're talking about World War II.
Mm-hmm. Well, it should mention that Operation Market Garden was not only intended to free the Netherlands, but to essentially create a quick path to Germany, hopefully ending the war just a little bit earlier. And as you said, it failed, and it's my understanding, at least, that over the next several months, things were very, very bad in the Netherlands.
Yes, Arnhem is a city of, I think, 180,000 people. I don't know how much people lived in Arnhem in 1944, but everyone had to leave the city. Mm-hmm. It was empty. Mm-hmm. So it was very bad. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Sure.
There were no buildings left. Everything was bombed. Yeah.
It was a difficult time for a lot of people.
Yes, and that's why it's still very alive over here. So every year there are, what do you call it? They organize things to remember that battle. Mm-hmm. And all veterans who landed here in 1944 and who can still travel, they come back every year, and we can thank them every year again for that.
In the United States, the term has come about over the last 10 to 15 years, the greatest generation. Those people who lived and fought and offered support during World War II.
But what they did in World War II was beyond the imaginary. Yes, yeah. Of course.
So you'll do the gig next Friday, and that'll be the official release of D-Day. Any other plans for months or weeks after that to get out there and get this CD, this record heard?
Yeah, next week I'll go to Pieter in Oosterbeek, because that's the Market Garden day, right?
Yeah,
Pieter?
Yeah. There are also landings again, and a lot of commemorations. We play as much gigs as possible. And next year is 75 years of liberation, freedom in the Netherlands and Europe. So we try to do as lot shows as we can in that theme.
Do you do most of your gigs around the Netherlands, or do you get around Europe at all?
Well, the last time a lot in the Netherlands, but we play in Italy, Germany, Belgium. Did we that in the last years? Belgium, and
UK. France.
UK, yeah.
We were in the United States 3 times, and we played in Canada on the Montreal Festival. So we play everywhere we are invited. But for the United States, it's more and more difficult because of regulations. So because of that, it costs a lot of more money.
Yeah.
So I think it's difficult to get bands from Europe to the US. And the other way around.
It's getting more so all the time.
If you are a money machine, then it's okay. But bands like us, it's very difficult.
Well, if you're going to go see Night Area, you may have to go over to Europe to do that. And if you do that, invite me along so that I can have a nice vacation over there as well. Guys,
you're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks. We
Absolutely.
are so pleased that you had some time to spend with us today. We thank you for that. And continued success. May this new album get a lot of hearing and a lot of people turned on to your band and what you're about, because this album and Night Area are well worth the listen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Pieter van Hoorn is the drummer. Mark Bogert is the guitarist for the band Night Area. Their new album, a tribute to the Allied invasion of Europe in World War II, and it is called D-Day. I'm Mark Boardman. For the latest in news, music, information, interviews, and reviews, and whatever else, go to our website at sonicperspectives.com. And to take us out, the first single from D-Day, Blood on the Risers.
and made sure his back was tied. He had to sit and listen to those awful engines roar. You ain't gonna jump